I'm happy that some are still interested, and it's yeah, quite funny actually. After all this philosophical and business insights and totally fresh, independent and KPIS stuff, I really loved the mixture. And thanks to our presenters, it was very informative. Informative. And I'm feeling a bit bad now, just jumping back to hardcore technicalities. But anyway, here be dragons. So maybe some.
That was all the thing about mixing those aspects is kind of cool. Like really, it's really good to have
Actually
these aspects. I think Liquidshop can stay and be something like that. I think Roma will agree, and Simon agrees, and everyone else
okay.
does as well. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this old Autocue, or this new Autocue actually. We have settings, a gazillion of them actually. The Autocue comes with great defaults, which should cover almost all use cases, but you can fine-tune everything. I've shown here what you could, for instance, put in your liquidsoap script or in the Azure Cast second, I think, input box. Let's just go over them. It's well, the path to the executable, of course, if you have it in a non-standard location. You can give it a standard fade in and fade out durations. This is more like radio type, hard fade in and a little slower fade out. This is a timeout for the queue file, how long it may run without complaining. It can take a while sometime if you use on-the-fly processing, but you can also pre-tag your files, no problem. Target is per default set to -18 LUFS. Silence is at -42. If you use that blank skipping feature, you might have to experiment with that value. For instance, on one of my stations, I've set it down to -46 so that it wouldn't cut some songs off early. This is the overlay level we have for determining where the next track should start. This is the number of seconds we consider being a long tail and the extra amount of loudness units to go below to keep the long tail. This is a Boolean stating you want no clip feature. Now I have to activate my tools here somewhere. Oh, okay. This is the blank skipping feature. You can switch it on and off. This is to unify the replay gain and lick amplify, because you most often will have files that are already replay gained, like with loud gain or another tool, and they might come up with different values. So you can decide which one you want, replay gain or amplify, and you can have them unified, which Autocue tries to unify them if it finds replay gain reference loudness. That's possible. Like you could have, for instance, tagged all your files with a target of -18 LUFS and wanted to play out at -14 like Spotify wants. And so you can just activate that. And it's actually on per default. You can have a queue file write tags automatically whenever it encounters a file to Autocue. It could write back tags to the file. But that's to be taken with a grain of salt, since I have to use FFmpeg for that right now. And that does not handle some file types very graciously, like it can't write tags to WAV files, and it does not handle M4A files very gracefully. So that depends on your use case. That's why it is off per default. It will speed up if it can write to the files. Mainly used probably for if you have if you are uploading files that are not replay gained before. And of course, it doesn't have to do the analysis then. You can force a reanalysis. This is not normally used, but used in the command line version, so I put it in there. And you should, if you use AzureCast or any other Linux box, activate NICE. NICE will actually do the FFmpeg calculations with a NICE of 18, NICE level of 18. So it will still use full CPU, but the system scheduler will know that it has to free the CPU for other processes so it doesn't block everything. That's rather important, and for instance in the AzureCast integration it's set per default because it will help avoid these dreaded we have to catch up errors. So well, that's that. If you're going easy, you can just enable Autocue metadata, which will what? Yeah, actually do autoqueuing on each and every file it encounters. You can also use protocol, but we come to that. Oops, zoom. We have in Liquidsoap a request queue. And this is per default, if you use enable Autocue metadata, set to 2, which means that at all times we have the next 2 requests available for immediate playout. It also gives Autocue enough time to process requests in advance, which is sometimes needed. If you have, say, a short jingle in between 2 songs, the next song has to be available immediately and not maybe wait a minute or something. And in AzureCast, this will block the first 2 entries in the up next queue from being deletable, understandably, because it has to have them ready.
I have a question, if you don't mind, about the prefetch. If we have to set it back after calling your functions, does it override the value, or does it check if it's actually more than 2 and doesn't take it?
No, it actually checks if it is 1, and if it is 1, it sets it to 2. If it's 2 or more, it just leaves it as is.
Cool, great, that's important.
So. Excuse me smoking, I'm very old, was born in 59 and there we still were allowed to. And I'm an old nicotine and caffeine addict actually. So well, you can use qfile to experiment on the command line, which is quite nice, I think. It throws out all information in JSON, so it's ideal for if you want to write your own pre-processing script or the like. I might come up with one eventually, but that's not done yet. But it's very, very great if you want to debug something or find out that something doesn't play nice, and you can just go and qfile the file name and see what happens. Because it's an external anyway. And if you want it more human readable, just use JQ-S. That will output it sorted and a little bit nicer to read. These are actually the values we get from qfile. It gives you an amplify. It gives you an amplify adjustment in case it has done clipping prevention, so you know how much off you were. It tells you if blanks have been skipped within the file, like for that Nirvana example. This is a setting actually. It will tell you where to start the next song. It will tell you the queue duration, which is the actual playout length between queue in and queue out. It will tell you the queue in and queue out points. It will tell you if the song has a long tail, like that Queen example. It will tell you the loudness of the song. It will tell you the loudness range. That's sometimes important to know if you have, loudness war damaged, highly compressed songs with a range of, 2 or 3 dB. Or if you have a high dynamic song. It will tell you the reference loudness. It calculated too. That was minus 18 LUFS here. And it will actually tell you the true peak in dBFS full scale. This could also be dBTP, but I did not try to introduce too many new names. So we just call it dBFS. It's actually full scale dB. So anyway.
Hey, Matthias.
Yeah.
Question for you. Can you send me later which of those are used by Autocue, like which of those we should store in the database?
Yeah, I'm still thinking and pondering about that. We have to talk about that. But you will find them later on in the presentation, actually.
Okay.
So if ever you are unsure what qfile does, you can of course do qfile help, and it will do and tell you a lot of stuff about the options. Oh, why doesn't it move? Now, metadata. I pondered about that quite a lot because we have to have override mechanisms. And so we handle metadata in a prioritized manner. So parameters can easily be stored and used, but also overridden. That's important. And the priorities from low to high actually are whatever qfile calculated. Next level is whatever you store in your file's tags. You can even do that manually, like storing the fate parameters for jingles or something. And metadata given in annotations. So annotations will always override what you find in tags, and tags will override what you get from qfile. And tags in files can override qfile behavior even, like switches, and you can thus tell qfile what to do. And you can, of course, use the tags just to avoid a costly reanalysis if possible. The usual thing is annotations, like for Azure Cast's Visual Queue Editor. So the user settings always win eventually over defaults or any stored tags, which is what we want, of course. Plus, using pre-tagged files is fast, showed before, I think. Like here we have this hard to analyze Nirvana song because it's clipping as it comes. And for some reason that makes the EBU R128 filter in FFmpeg crap out and take a long time. So this song's actually taking 1 minute 9 seconds to calculate. And if you have it pre-tagged, like I did it here, as I said, use blank skipping, use clipping prevention, force recalculation and write tags. And the next run, I just said, oh, blank skipping and clipping prevention and no force write and stuff, and it just almost immediately came back in 0.3 seconds with the results. And thus it was 222 times faster. Nice number, actually. qfile tries to be intelligent, so to say, and depending on the requested parameters, like, you want to change the LUFS playout target or something, or you want to make a playlist that plays every song from 30 seconds in to 60 seconds, like preview or something. It tries to avoid costly reanalysis if anyhow possible. So if needed file tags are missing, it will do a new analysis, of course. What else can it do? If the tags fit the request, it will use the tags and not do a new analysis, which is super fast. If it can calculate, like if you want to play out at minus 14 LUFS and the tags are for minus 18 LUFS, it can recalculate, so it's almost as fast. And if it has the situation that you have disabled blank skipping, like for jingles, for instance, and the tags include blank skip, and vice versa, of course, reanalysis is automatically forced because it's needed. We need to find a new Q out point and a new overlay point. This is an example of the tags written by QFile. I just make it a little bigger. I just prefixed them all with lick in the hope that we don't have to change that. Because it's much easier internally to look for lick tags or tags starting with lick something. This is an example actually from the Nirvana file. So we also have replay gain tags usually, like if you have tagged your file with loud gain, it will give you these values. No, they are actually not stored in separate files, they are stored in the file. So this can only work if you let Liquidsoap write to your holy data, which I, for instance, don't.
Sorry, I meant by the question, I meant, is it like a single tag for your Autocue thing, or do you have one tag for each value?
No, I have actually all these.
Okay, so those are...
One tag for each value.
Okay, cool.
Plus it knows about a lot of more tags, like fade in, fade out, and fade type, and fade curve, and whatnot, which it doesn't use actually, but it knows about it. So you can also annotate as told, like here we have an example for a jingles playlist. For jingles playlist we want to disable blank skipping even if we have globally enabled it. And we want to set, say, fade in and fade out to 0.1 seconds, so it is very short fades. We can do that very easily just by storing what playlist and then use a prefix to annotate it. And we annotate lick blank skip equal false, which is actually a switch that tells QFile not to do blank skipping on this file. We set lick fade in and lick fade out, which will actually override whatever else is there. And bingo. Azure Cast, Visual Cue Editor, same thing. Internally it uses annotations. So that's exactly what we want. We can set everything here. It will be an annotation and thus it overrides whatever it's got and you get the desired result. Oops. We use basically three kinds of metadata. Switches that control Autocue functionality on a per file or per playlist basis. Results that are calculated by QFile and used in further player processing. And informational metadata that might come in handy, like the loudness information, but is not really used for anything else. The switches. We can skip blanks in the song, which is controlled by lick blank skip, setting it to true or false. We can totally disable queuing, auto-queuing, which is rather important if you have video on your station and have multi-gigabyte video files, like I have on mine, for instance. I think the largest is around 10 gigabytes or something. And you wouldn't want Autocue to process that file. It can do that, but it will take a long time. And you will normally play the radio content over the video anyway. And so it wouldn't make much sense. In this case, you can use lick QFile equal false on your annotation for the playlist, and it will just not Autocue the files in that playlist. Special case convenience function actually for Azure Cast that already has jingle mode, which is used when you set hide metadata for a playlist and play it in so-called jingle mode, which is also a Boolean, but which also disables blank skipping in Autocue. So jingles aren't cut short. Because you have speech pauses when you do an ad or something, it would almost always cut them. And so we just disable blank skipping for these and all is good. Then there's Sam Broadcaster. Many people have used Sam Broadcaster before. And they have a notion of song categories. And we will also disable blank skipping for all songs that are not the type song, like adverts, jingles, whatever else some broadcaster knows about. So this is all automatic and you don't really have to care. The result tags of QFile, or Autocue QFile in this case, are the song duration, because using the filter anyway gives you better duration than what can be estimated. You get a lick amplify value, which you can use to achieve same loudness playout. You get informational amplify adjustment information, like if it did clipping prevention, how many dBs has it reduced playout volume. You get cross start next, the point where the next song starts. You get, of course, Q in, Q out. You get lick reference loudness, which is important to store in case you want to play out the same song with a different loudness later on. Like you change the station from, say, -18 to -14 for some reason, which you shouldn't do, but well, anybody does, because everybody wants to be the loudest station on the dial. And you have replay gain, track gain, and replay gain reference loudness, which are special. I do modify them in the metadata, so you can use replay gain, track gain as an amplify variable, but we will never write these back to the file. So we will never modify your original replay gain information, because that might be more precise or calculated otherwise, so we don't touch it. That's why we have our own lick amplify and lick reference loudness. We have informational data, like did it do blank skipping? What was the Q duration? Playout length actually. Was the song having a long tail? What loudness did it have? What range did it have? And what was its true peak? And there are a plethora of other metadata that are either used internally or reserved for future expansion, which you will find in the source code if you care to look. And fading data, of course, and opus gain and ramp and hook points and all other stuff we know about belong to this category. Next, the log files. You need to check them, of course, for debugging and setting up your station as you want it. And it rather clearly and probably much too verbose shows what Autocue is doing. But it's an invaluable tool, especially when starting with a new piece of software. So I left it in, and I will probably reduce it over time so it doesn't spit out that much data. We have basically 3 levels we use: severe, that's for errors and problems; important, that's for Autocue information and results; and info, for debugging, who really wants to dig in, will get lots of output. So here's an example of what we get on a real station. It will tell you, now autocuing this and that file, do I have blank skipping active? Do I have clipping prevention active? What was my Q file result, the actual JSON? Clipping prevention, adjusted, calculated replay gain from something to something else. In this case, it was the same. It will give you messages like no fade in duration giving using default setting, no fade out duration given. Fade out is less than overlay duration, 2.8 seconds calculated, moving Q out point from 195 to 194.7, for instance. That's what I mean with cutting off the overhang. And then eventually it will tell you what metadata it added or corrected. All these we talked about. And we have, for diagnostic purposes, at least in Azure Cast now, you can also get it from the test Autocue lick something in my repo, which does the same. We have a show meta, which shows all this metadata again in the form it is actually finally used, and you will see there are some more in that come from Liquidsoap, from the integration layer, like the cross duration and internal value. Actually, the fade in and fade out, it actually used the fade out delay it used, and stuff like that. And so that we know what song played when this data came in, I also added now playing, so we know what this was about. Well, you can download all that stuff on my GitHub repo, which is linked in the presentation. And as per now, if you want to get the source code and do something with it, please download from the Integrate with Liquidsoap branch. I left that open since Toots was referring to that, and also I believe Buster does it for Azure-Cast. And so this will be in for a while, but eventually we will merge it all to the main. On GitHub are also docs and examples, like the hidden track example and the long tail example, but these are a little outdated. I admit I have to update the documentation a little. And the roadmap, what's to come. Autocue 2, the original try, what we wanted to do is being scrapped, of course, now, since we have this integration. Autocue Q file is a supported integrated solution now for Liquidsoap 2.2.5 and newer. That means I will update that for 2.3.0 after testing. And we have some issues fixed in the meantime and some others not. Like the double Autocue issue is fixed, where it autocued every file twice actually. New fade in, larger than old fade out. This still seems to be an issue in the integration layer. I think I'm working on that with Toots, but maybe also on only on 2.3, because we have to bring out the new one eventually. And of course that will require some testing since some things break, and some breaking changes in there. Azure-Cast integration with Buster, that's already in the works, as you see, work in progress. And really many thanks that you managed to include all that before this presentation, so now everybody can profit. Yeah, I guess I've done it. Wow, questions and answers, anyone?
Well, now you have a way to time your conference, because you had like two times half an hour, so I guess it's good. There might be someone who's typing a question. I have a question. What did you have to do to adapt for Liquidsoap? You're saying that your branch is separate. Well, I guess I could diff on GitHub and see what you did, but could you tell me what did you have to do?
It was done in stages. It started out as a proof of concept, a command line thing, that Q file, to see if we would be fast enough to do it on the fly, actually. And then we started all this Liquidsoap integration stuff, but that integration layer wasn't there. So I wrote a complete new protocol at first, that is all in the main branch, which doesn't work anymore. Don't use it. And then Toots came up with a wonderful idea of making an integration layer, so that both RMFM's Autocue and mine could be used in a same layer somehow, and have an API to work on. And that's all we worked on in this integrate with Liquidsoap layer. And this is the one I keep updated right now.
Okay, that's cool. Another question I had, because I was saying mostly to Buster that I do have radio automation software that is really boasting that feature, the visual cue things, and storing that without destroying the file and stuff. I'm wondering, and I don't know the answer, sorry, because when I first implemented this kind of things that I needed to avoid calculating, I use Obue tools, which is a library that does it, and I saw that you're using FFmpeg and all their great filters and stuff to manage it. It's quite clever, and that's fine. My question would be, is there some kind of normalization? Because here we have fade as it's implemented in Liquidsoap, but the concepts, as you mentioned, are either normalized or somehow always kind of the same. You know, the Q in, Q out, long tailing, long tail Q out, long tail fade out, fade in. Those are kind of normalized. Is there a format that might help not, somehow polluting all the file with tags, that things that may or may not be compatible with other software?
Yeah, you could just use the defaults.
Yeah. But, as far as representing
penetrate stuff, like you could leave out all the tags, except that it takes a little more time. But to be honest, I've been running it for months now on 4 stations, and it's not too much. The typical song will take, I don't know, between 2 and 4 seconds to calculate.
Yeah,
so that's rather fast, actually.
But maybe
you could use that.
I'm mostly wondering about some kind of normalization for other radio automating software, that would talk. And the question David was asking is the Q file a custom JSON file format instead of the Q sheet file? I think it's called Autocue because it used to be done with QCut using internal Liquidsoap tool, and it doesn't have much to do with the Q file format, in fact.
That is true, yeah. I'm actually looking forward to having Q-File in 2.3.0 for my recordings, because that's rather important to be able to jump around if you save a recording. But that has nothing to do with it. It actually comes from the Q-in and Q-out point, and so that's for some reason I called it Q-File.
Yeah,
maybe also influenced by John a little because he called his thing, if I remember correctly, Q playlist.
But because it was to be used with the QCut operator that's been removed from Liquidsoap. So exactly. It's kind of error leading, but I do get the idea. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's fine. Well, I'm guessing like if anyone has more questions for Matthias, I think it's good that you had time to go further on that, and I'm pretty sure that as I said,
that metadata thing needs to be understood, because you can have switches like disable, enable something. You can have overrides like set your own cue points, say for a sampling playlist or something, and you get results. And how this interacts is rather important to know. And in the meantime, I've also uploaded to my GitHub repo the full presentation, so you can enjoy it as a Reveal.js presentation and work along yourself in your own pace. And you could maybe link to it if you wanted.
Yes,
I think there's the links here somewhere. And the PDF will also have these links, because I used the sneak preview links and now it's the full version. So everybody can find it and either download the PDF and do something with it, or use the Reveal.js to relive it.
Yep, and the PDF.
Which is in dark mode, by the way, Buster.
Which is what?
Which is in what?
Which is in dark mode and not in light mode.
In dark.
I was mentioning the light mode. But of course, I thought it saves ink on the printer if you present the PDF in light mode.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. Thanks for everyone that still is watching you, and thanks Buster and you for integrating that, because as I said, taking the bigger picture is there are software that boast that they are the only one that actually have that visual editing things, and that it works properly and cross-threading nicely, and level matching and stuff like that is really important. And I think that it is going to make quite a dent in the.
Yeah, actually, I've even planned more. I hope Buster goes along with that. Because the next thing, of course, all radio people will miss is, we don't have a ramp point. And the over next will be, but what about hooks? We want hook in, hook out.
It's true. It's true. Hooks
variables are already in Q file, so it knows about it, but I don't know yet how to implement that. But we could have it in the Visual Q editor, maybe.
Yeah, the idea we have on AzureCast side is to expand the metadata storage inside AzureCast to be like a key value store. That you can set individual keys and values. So we will manage, like via the Visual Q editor, we can edit set values, but if you want to specify your own values, you can do that in the database without having to worry about file metadata being written. What we try to do is what Matthias is doing, where we try to write back to the file if it makes sense and it's possible. Although we have the exact same problem of we can only write to things that either support Vorbis comment or ID3. Right. So a WAV file is kind of out the window.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe using muttergain for that, because that is the library, fortunately, available for Python, that could do most file formats. But then again, MP3 and FLAC is a start.
Yeah, I think what Buster was saying is not only about the library; it's about the format actually truly being able to be stored in those formats, as WAV does not have the tagging ability that you require. And
eventually, it's all tags. So if we in AzureCast, for instance, could read the tags the first round, and then keep it in the database, we would have one anyway.
That's a big thing.
I'm guessing that using Liquidsoap, you could just request those values from the database. Probably, maybe that's a good idea. But also for the Q file, using an input file, I think like it just outputs JSON, and maybe you could use it as an input to tag back the file, or to use in Liquidsoap will be good, so that because we do that for other things. If we have a common ID for the track, like a hash or whatever, I can save those in a companion file that has to be matched in a way. But of course, it's the same if you want to do it in a database or something. So maybe we can want to say, all right, just give me the JSON, I'll deal with it, or maybe it can
exactly. That was the idea behind using JSON.
And if it could ingest JSON and just do its magic, or maybe just check the values, you get the JSON with the values, and that's another layer of priority, in your ordering. That might help. Or maybe not. It has to be done directly for AzureCast. But I'm willing to check how that is. And Buster, I really need to get back on AzureCast, because I've set it up for one or two radio stations, and one had that question about big media library handling, and they have like a huge one, and it's kind of well tended to, and it's going to be probably set to read only for AzureCast. So that's why I need some companion files for the JSON if I want to have some caching of those attributes. And at the same time, they have like 10 different stations that are not really different stations, but they have to be like different time zones and stuff like that in there. So it's different. And I do it all manually with Liquidsoap, because I have scripts for more than 15 years doing that. But I think that adding the Visual Q plus a nice playlist editor, that's the thing. And I think it was not that pretty in AzureCast like 4 years ago when I first actually tested it. And I actually think that we might be onto something, and that's cool, because But
we also have to use mask tagging, because you can't expect, say, someone to tag 160,000 files like I have.
Oh yeah, and it's quite easy. Like the way you did it, and the way actually John did it before. It's easy to batch process all the thing. And I'm actually doing it at the moment. I'm just checking a few things. And since I was listening, I couldn't do it at the same time. But I'm going to play with it, and I'm going to be annoying in the issues or whatever. I don't know.
Let me know and post the issues. Exactly, that's important.
There is a very neat feature that we added in Azure not too long ago. First of all, the UI has been probably rewritten twice in 5 years. So if you haven't looked at it in 5 years, I'd go play with it.
I play with it like a year ago once again.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's
I
a
want
single
to
page app.
Just let me throw in one thing. AzureCast actually performs quite well. I have a library of around 160,000 songs, 4 stations with about 70 playlists each, and that runs smoothly. It takes ages until it has read all the data into the database, but Buster did it chunking, so it goes, I think, in steps of 100 or so until it's done, and then it's really super stable and super fast.
Well, I will give you some feedback about that because I'm going to be using it again. Usually I do smaller sets because I just want to test things out.
Yeah, and I like to try edge cases.
So the thing I was talking about, though, that I was going to tell you about that we have now is the bulk CSV import-export.
Okay.
So cool. if you want to do bulk metadata editing with AzureCast, that may be the easiest way of doing it with large collections.
Cool, that's really cool.
Short of using just a tagging software.
I have something like 20,000 files in one of the subsections. I'm going to try it with it, and it was not only about the robustness or the speed of it, but more of people from the radio or the sound design scene. They are really they want the tool to work really nice and to not have hoops and stuff like that. And it was kind of when you were setting intelligent or smart playlists. I don't remember how you call the playlist for the random from Liquidsoap in the interface, but it was kind of confusing to them because if you didn't know what was underneath. On the Liquidsoap part, you would get lost easily, but maybe you've changed that. So I'm going to get back at it, and I might even have some funding for that.
Okay.
So I might not only be renting, I might be actually be bringing money in, and I'd like it for some parts. Okay. Cool. Well, I don't know. I think we've lost everyone also, but there's still like 20% connected and dozens of people that still have the audio on. Would you guys want to say let's maybe close this down and
yeah, okay, let's do that.
Conclude. Oh, cool.
Thanks for having me, and I hope it was interesting enough in spite of all those technical things, and I hope it will have a good future.
Yep, I think it's going to be very nice, and it's really nice. There's those mix of users and developers and people doing very funny things. Maybe it's going to be considered art, thanks to Nicolas' way of seeing things. But I think we are. This community is quite good, and it's nice. It could use a little bit more hands on the on the deck, but I'm guessing that we do what we can. And AzureCast is certainly a very, very good showcase for Liquidsoap, and so are the radio that do video things and stuff like that. It's really good showcasing that we can do artsy thing with Liquidsoap, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
So thanks for helping, guys.
Yeah.
And well, I don't know if Sam is still. I think Sam went home, so he might be around, but I'm not sure if he's actually active there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop the recording if I'm allowed to do so, and yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, and see you maybe next Liquidshop or in some issues in AzureCast or in Autocue. Great.